the positions are so far apart. Real Madrid want Gareth Bale to leave. Zinedine Zidane has made no attempt whatsoever to hide the fact that he wants Bale to leave and has started to try and send very clear messages to him. But of course, Bale's position at the moment at least is, well, I've got a 3-year contract. You're paying me 18 million euros a year after tax. If you want me to go, that needs to be resolved. There needs to be a solution where he doesn't lose money in his salary, where the offers in terms of where he goes are places that he wants to go to, are clubs that are big enough for him, that can pay him that kind of salary. And of course, from Real Madrid's point of view, they will want those clubs to pay some sort of transfer fee. Now, at some stage, something is probably going to have to give. And if it doesn't, then I guess what we're going to have is Gareth Bale reporting back for pre-season training going, hello, and trying to get on with it, but not playing.
Ian, let's get your perspective on this. Stevie Nichols said on the show yesterday that Gareth Bale shouldn't go back to the Premier League just given his injury history. I wonder what you think. Do you think the Premier League is where he belongs?
Well, it would be quite a nice thought, and I think he'd be welcomed back, and he'd be a great signing, wouldn't he, for somebody like Manchester United who need this major surgery. But as Sid's been explaining, there's a lot of bridges to cross before that can happen, and maybe Gareth Bale is quite prepared to sit there in Madrid playing golf and not being in the team because Zinedine Zidane obviously doesn't want him in the team. So I think what is happening there will certainly prick up the ears of the big clubs in the Premier League. Whether they're prepared to bust their wage structure to have him on board and whether they can persuade him to come is quite another matter. But it's an enticing prospect.
Ian, what about his injury history specifically? Do you think Premier League teams, given their schedule, given the amount of games, should be buyer beware with this player?
Well, they would be a little bit wary, yeah, that maybe, and he's not getting any younger. He's pushing up towards 30 now, so it is a factor. But if you're, say, Manchester United, who don't have Champions League football to offer, I don't know whether that is a killer of the deal for somebody like Gareth Bale. But just say Manchester United were interested and offered the right kind of carrot, I think they'd be prepared to take their chances on that, because he really would be a marquee signing.
Sid, I want to ask you a question here. Who has more leverage? Because obviously Real Madrid could just sit him on the bench for 3 years. But in the article that you wrote, I believe it was yesterday, you kind of make the point. Madrid can't make any moves until Bale is moved. So isn't he in the power position here?
Well, that's it. I mean, I think we're in a position where, in truth, right now, neither of them are really in the power position, in that both sides kind of depend on each other. So long as you make the assumption that Gareth Bale wants to play football and wants to either play football for Real Madrid, in other words, Zidane would have to back down and play him, or wants to go somewhere else and play football, in other words, Real Madrid would have to find that exit strategy for him, accept whichever transfer offer was made, and make it all happen. And then, of course, it would also be in the hands of the buying club because they would need to offer Gareth sufficient money. But then, as you say, the other side of it is that Gareth has the power insofar as Real Madrid... Now, we always talk about Real Madrid having huge numbers of transfer targets, and this year in particular, because Zidane does want a number of signings. But, of course, you can't just invent money. Now we tend to look at Real Madrid and Barcelona and say, well, somewhere along the line, they'll find a way. And somewhere along the line, sometimes they do. But actually, if you look at Real Madrid's transfer activity over the last 3 or 4 years, what you're seeing there is an economic reality. And so in order for Real Madrid to go for Hazard, to go for Jovic, to go for Pogba, to go for Mendy, to go for all of these players that Zidane wants, they need to generate money. And of course, Bale is one of the ways that they can do so in terms of a transfer fee, but just as importantly, in terms of removing this enormous, almost 40 million euro salary from their annual budget. Now, it's very, very difficult. You say, who's got more leverage? Right now, I honestly don't know. And it does feel like this is a position in which we're going to wait and see who blinks first. And I do feel like this cannot go on like this. But at the moment, we are, without doubt, in a stalemate. And I don't know who's going to give way first when it comes to this.
Sid, at the beginning of the segment, we mentioned the word bitterness, nastiness to describe, this saga. Zidane has come out and said he was sorry for not allowing Gareth Bale to have the farewell after 6 years at the club, not giving him his farewell in that last game. Do you think Zidane has taken it too far in that regard?
Well, I mean, the first thing to say, I think, is that Zidane had said quite bluntly, well, I didn't put him on because I didn't, because that's just what happens. There are other players who went on. And when it was put to him explicitly in terms of, you have denied a historic player at Real Madrid the chance to say goodbye, or potentially. He said, well, when you think of it like that, no, you're right, I did that. I did that and I'm sorry. But it didn't feel like a proper apology, in truth. And I think a lot of people think it was a little sad that he didn't play. It was a little sad that he wasn't given the chance to depart. But of course, given the circumstances at the moment at Real Madrid, given the appalling season that they've had, given the fact that Gareth Bale, I think rather unfairly, has been made, if you like, the kind of the focal point of their failure, actually, if he'd put him on the pitch, maybe it would have been less of a goodbye and more of a good riddance from the fans. And so perhaps it was almost better this way.
For more, sign up now for ESPN Plus.